Brought to you from Melbourne, Australia, this is the Badminton Podcast, a community for badminton players by badminton players, where we talk badminton, celebrate local heroes, interview players from all walks of life, and push you to grow as a player and a person. Introducing your hosts, Jeff and Henry.
Hello and welcome to the Badminton Podcast. My name is Henry.
And my name's Jeff.
And we're the co-founders of Volant, the brand that offers the most versatile badminton apparel in the world. If you'd like to check us out, find us on www.volantwear.com. We have some really cool things to share with you over the next few months. We're really excited to be here sharing with you another episode of the podcast where we can all learn to be a little bit better as players and as people. So thank you once again for tuning into this episode, and I'll leave it to Jeff to introduce you to our next guest.
Thanks, Henry. Our next guest, I've known him for a little while, not really personally, but we did play on the badminton circuit together several years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, which is quite a lot longer than what I'd like to identify as my age. But anyway, he basically grew up in a badminton family as a result of a badminton romance. His mum played for England 84 times and won a world bronze medal in 1980 in Jakarta. His uncle Duncan Bridge was also a top-ranked player from England. But look, enough about his rich family history. This man himself, he was hitting shuttles from the moment he could just hold a racket with his small little hands. And some of his notable achievements include quitting university to pursue a badminton career full-time. He played in the 2008 Thomas Cup finals. He's the head of badminton at Wimbledon Rackets and Fitness Club with the Junior Elite program, achieving 5 out of 5 gold status 2 years running. During his time as head of badminton, our guest today, he met a hardworking and funny character. His name was Jonathan. And now we fast forward to 2019, he's actually teamed up with Jonathan in what the badminton world knows as Swift Badminton.
We just need more people like that working really hard to kind of get badminton more in the kind of the mainstream and kind of change perceptions. I don't have any great, big, wonderful idea, but just more of the same. I think I'm starting to see little things. I think if more people did it and it grew more, then that would definitely help badminton's popularity, especially outside of where it already is really popular.
Ben Beckman is our guest today. And Ben, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, no, what you said about 10 years ago, then I also am a bit embarrassed about getting old, I guess.
We're getting old,
I can't believe it's that long ago.
Absolutely.
I mean, I stopped when I was young, but now I'm at that age where even if I'd continued, I'd probably be near the end. So that's definitely a sign that you're moving on.
Absolutely.
So if we wind back to further than 10 years when you did first get your little grubby hands on a badminton racket, what was that journey like, Ben?
Well, like you said, quite rightly, my parents met at a badminton club. It was actually my grandma that told my mum that there's quite a nice looking guy that comes down to this club. You should come down.
That's great.
Obviously, they hit it off.
That's great.
They hit it off. Were together for many years before they had me. My uncle was also a very good player. So obviously I grew up in a badminton family. My granddad played, my grandma played. Pretty much everyone in my family was pretty good. But it was my mum that retired just before I was born, obviously just to have me. And so she needs to obviously earn some money. So coaching was quite an obvious way for her because she became a professional player from the age of 15, 16 playing for England. So studied had to take a bit of a back step for her. So I went along being young, not able to be left at home. So I grew up around all these different badminton clubs, and my mum was still playing a little bit on the England circuit. So I'd go along with her there. So it was just natural for me to play. I never took it too seriously though. I played for my county or region, as you might call it, but I didn't really get any private coaching. I didn't really train properly until I was about 16 years old, where my cousin said that there was a really fun training group down at Wimbledon Rackets Fitness Club. So I went along to that, absolutely loved it. I trained all summer long. And then the next season, my badminton had improved so much, it just kind of lit this fire in me. And then over the next year or two, I made it into the England team. And then everything kind of went from there, really. So yeah, grew up around badminton, didn't take it too seriously. But then when I finally did, it just kind of, it blew up from there, really.
It sounds like there was a lot involved in this camp. So just for the listeners, I guess, what's involved at these badminton camps that you went to? It seems like you became a professional player outside of it.
Yeah, so the badminton camps I went to were just run by the head coach at the time at Wimbledon. And there really wasn't much of that around at the time. And things change now. There's training camps for players all around the country in England. Okay, now, back then, there wasn't too much on. So a lot of the kind of county players and the adult players, some of the top under 19 players were there training. So I got a chance to train with them because outside the kind of, I guess if you were in the England team, you were at Milton Keynes at the National Centre. But if you were just sitting outside that, then there wasn't much. So this place that was being run was one of those places. So I was lucky. I was the youngest one there at the time. It was great. And that really kind of increased my level massively and really got me even more interested in badminton and even more passionate about it, really.
Yeah, it is kind of like a consuming sport. When you get into it, you just want more and more and more.
Yeah, no, I did. I really, really did. I went from, like I said, not having any lessons, maybe hitting my mum the night before a tournament, to playing 5-6 days a week. And then the coach would lend me VHS tapes. Again, that shows my age a little bit. Of all these like matches that I would watch in the evening, and then I'd come back the next day trying to kind of replicate it. And yeah, I became obsessed with it. I really, really did.
Who were the players that you were watching on the videotapes?
They were, I'm not sure many of the viewers, unless they've watched some of the older players, would know, but players like, we're talking from the 80s.
Yeah.
So Morton Frost.
Yeah,
he's one of the commentators. Hendron was one of the ones. I didn't have many tapes on him, but when YouTube started coming about, so obviously it wasn't around when I was that age, then I started watching more of him. But players, it was like Morton Frost, Liam Sui King, a few of the Chinese players like Yang Yang, and then it went to like Hoya Larson and Dong Zhong and all those kind of players from the 80s and 90s. I watched countless hours of those. Sometimes I'd watch the same match every night for months on end. It was kind of, looking back at it, I was definitely obsessed with the sport.
Yeah, there's some old school characters.
Yeah, really old school.
Original gangsters, OGs of badminton.
Yeah. I used to love it because it was like these guys going like toe to toe. You know that if it was a match from out in Asia, there was no aircon back then, and the crowd were like literally on the court, so they're not in like seats. So it was just brilliant, like watching this. And obviously, I could ask my mum questions like, "What's it really like?" So she would always happily tell me that even the video doesn't do it justice. So I used to love kind of watching that kind of stuff. It was really good fun.
Where do you think badminton has come since then? Like if you think about the 80s videos of badminton that you were watching on tape versus, I don't know, what some of the more recent games, say a Momota versus Ginting, like how do you think badminton has changed or evolved over this period of time?
I think it's fair to say that it's got a lot faster. The singles games were more about attrition. I mean, players still have to be very fit these days, obviously. But I think with the way the rackets were and the strings and string tension, you weren't going to have these blisteringly fast rallies. It was still quick. I mean, I'd like to see players still live at that level. It's still impressive. But obviously these days, the modern players play the game a lot faster. I think there's obviously a lot to be said about kind of technology in the sport, so people can kind of watching more and analysing more so they can really get their tactics down. Yeah, obviously players back then weren't jump smashing as much. All these kind of, it's changed. Obviously also back in the 80s, the scoring system was the old scoring system, which kind of changed the way players played. But in general, I think it is the speed, the athleticism. Players train, I wouldn't say they train necessarily harder, but I think it's a bit more structured, I'd say. So you're getting the most out of these kind of, they're getting the most out of themselves.
I agree.
A little more.
Yes, a bit more of the sports science stuff, isn't it? A bit more of that research into it and
exactly
specificity for training, and then strength training comes into it, power training, and all the kind of things in sport in general that's just made badminton such a more, just more dynamic, more athletic. Not saying that they weren't back then. And we might look back in 20, 30 years from now and think, whoa, it's so slow today.
I know. Yeah, I know. Even if you go back 15, 20 years to the beginning, turn of the century, that it's changed even more since then.
Completely.
Yeah, it really has.
Completely. Even when they changed to the new scoring system 2006, Yeah, completely different.
Yeah, I mean, it changed a lot when they changed it. Suddenly everyone was just going all out. But it seems that it's kind of steadily gone back to, there's now a bit more sensible players, would you say?
Absolutely. A bit more grinds, yeah.
Whereas at the start, everyone was just like, win a point per rally, let's just smash the hell out of it and really, really quick. But it's kind of like...
Just go hard for 5 and then chill out for 1.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's changed now because players are... Their defense, everything is just getting so ridiculous that if you did that, you're not really going to get very far, I don't think. There aren't many players that are all out attack and are really the best. I think the best players, the ones that are patient within the rallies and can still play winners, obviously, but you don't get those kind of all out attacking players anymore. I don't see it as much in the men's singles, I'd say.
Yeah, completely agree as well, because some people have been referring to a study in their trainings and they say, okay, the average point of badminton rally is 8 seconds or something along. It was under 10 seconds, I remember. Yeah. And so we only need to do intervals of 10 seconds to train for badminton. And it's completely different. And I always challenge that and say, look, when was that study actually done? Because nowadays, some of the ladies doubles players are playing 90-minute matches. And yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. But some of the men's singles players, it's not uncommon for men's singles matches to go over the hour mark these days. It's completely normal.
Yeah, I'd say an hour is pretty standard length these days at the top level. Maybe that's partly because they dive over rally, so you've got to wipe the court. But no, I think the top men's and women's singles, you're looking at an hour is quite usual. Yep. If you see anything under 45 minutes, you're kind of surprised, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
They tend to be those one-sided matches if it goes lower than that.
Yeah, like the one I've had a few of those, so.
I've had a few against me as well. Now, Ben, just coming back to the badminton story that you've had in your career and where you are right now, if we go back to being the head of badminton at Wimbledon Racket and Fitness Club, this might be a silly question, but do you have to wear all white there as well?
No, that's just the tennis.
That's just the tennis?
That's just the tennis. No, you can...
So the badminton's not played on lawn? No?
No. Definitely not. Although that is obviously what a lot of people think, that it is played on the grass outside in the park. But I'd like to see you try to do that in England. You wouldn't get very far. It's too windy or too cold. It's just, no. So no start on that one.
No. So Ben, actually moving further back instead of being head of badminton, I just want to briefly touch on you leaving university to compete professionally for England. Was that a big decision for you to leave uni?
Yeah, it was. I mean, looking back, it was an easy, quite obvious decision, and obviously a good one if you're looking in hindsight now. But at the time, it was difficult because I believe it was one of the first years where you really had to pay quite a lot of money to go to university. I might be wrong, but I feel like it was. So I'd already invested a fair bit of money into it. So there was that side that made the decision a little bit difficult. Also, you don't want to kind of disappoint your parents in a way. And they were always, although they've always been very supportive of me, they're always like, oh, it'd be very good if you got a degree, because you never know what might happen or what happens when you want to finish your career, what you're going to do afterwards if you don't have a degree. But for me personally, it wasn't a particularly difficult decision apart from telling my parents, really, because the course I really wanted to do, kind of my other interest outside of badminton was making kind of editing films and editing videos. So I did a course on media at Loughborough University but it wasn't really about video editing at all. Because the main reason I went to Loughborough was obviously because it's a very well-known sporting university. So I thought even if the course doesn't go great, at least the training will be good. And Loughborough is very good. It's one of the top universities still. But at the time, the top coach had just left. And the strength and conditioning coaches seemed to be changing every week. So there kind of wasn't really much of a structure or plan. So my badminton started to slip. Obviously, university lifestyle, you get kind of sucked into that a little bit, going out drinking and not eating very well. So my course wasn't going very far. I'd only gone to a handful of lectures because I kind of lost interest. The badminton wasn't going very far. So I was thinking, what am I doing? And really, I really did want to be a badminton player. If I'm honest, I went to uni to get a degree, but also I really wanted to just keep my badminton going. And when that was slipping, I was like, I've got to get out of here. And it's going to be tough, but badminton is what I want to do. And I'm just going to slip by the wayside, get into debt and not really get anywhere. So I made a decision to quit within the first year, actually. And it obviously turned out to be a good one because within a year, I was selected to go to the Thomas Cup in Indonesia. So looking back, it was definitely the right decision. But as far as a difficult one, the only difficult part was actually telling your parents that you're going to leave university and in debt as well. So personally, within myself, I knew that's what I wanted to do. But it was just getting up that courage to kind of tell my parents that I was going to leave university and I was going to go to badminton full time without getting a degree or anything like that. So yeah, that's kind of how that went down, really.
Yeah, I think that's really important to mention because I think a lot of the times we do actually know what the right decision is to make. It is really just about preparing yourself to make it and all the things that go around it. And the parents thing is definitely one because, of course, all parents would like their children to have an education, generally speaking, and it's for our own benefit, right? Because we need to have an education to have a stable job after badminton, or what happens if you get injured? All those kind of questions do pop up. So I think regardless of whether you know it's the right decision or not, it did take a lot of courage to actually tell your parents and make that choice. Did you kind of plant the seed early with them? Like a little bit so they wouldn't be so shocked, like plant the seed, just a few little hints here and there, then tell them, or was it just bang, straight out?
No, there's actually a really funny story about how I did it, because I'm not very good with confrontation or that, even if it's my own parents. I was kind of trying to build up the courage to it. And so what actually happened was one day, it was around Easter, I just decided, right, I'm done. And I just left and I drove down to my coach's house. And occasionally when in the holidays, whenever if I was training there, because he lived really close to the venue, I occasionally would stay. So I just turned up on his door front saying, I've quit university. Can I stay here for a day or two? Because I can't tell my parents. I haven't got the courage to do it yet. So I kind of like hid at his house for about half a week before.
Oh, really?
My parents didn't keep a tab on me at university. Yeah. And obviously if they called me, I kind of lied a little bit. But
a little bit.
It got to a point where, because I was at the club, there were other people that my parents knew. So I just decided, after a couple of days, I thought, I've got to tell them. So I eventually I did do it, but it was quite funny how I just drove down from Loughborough in the middle of the night, didn't even tell my coach, just knocked on his door. I'm going to be a badminton player. Can I stay at yours? Because I haven't told my parents yet. And he said, yeah, that's fine. A couple of days later.
That's what you want a coach to do, right?
Yeah.
Was he encouraging you to tell your parents?
Yeah, he said he did. Yeah. Well, I had to. I don't think he could.
Is he like, there's no bed if you don't tell your parents?
No. I mean, he was happy for me to do it in my own time, if I remember rightly. I mean, this is a long time ago, but
how many years ago are we talking?
14 years ago, maybe 13 or 14 years ago. So, quite a while.
Yeah, well. How did you finally break it to your parents? Was it a dramatic conversation?
I think I think I just went round to I think I called my mum, because I tended to talk to my mum about these things more than my dad, and just told her that I had to come round and tell her something. And I think she kind of knew. I think she had an inkling.
Did you bring a coach with you?
No, I went solo. I took it on myself to do it on my own, and it was absolutely fine. I don't know why I worried, because they're not the kind of people to get angry at this kind of thing. They'll just be, so long as if this is your choice and you want to do it, then go for it. Obviously, you know the risks and all that. But my mum couldn't really say anything because she didn't go to university because she pursued badminton. I think my dad dropped out of university to get a job because he just wanted to earn some money. So really, they couldn't have had a massive go at me, but it still didn't make it any easier to tell them. But it all was well in the end. It was, I'd made a mountain out of a molehill, to be honest, but that's how it went. So
yeah, I think that's what commonly happens when you make a decision and you think, oh, wait, is that it? It wasn't really that big a deal. Okay, so you've left university to compete professionally and train professionally, and you've been able to represent England at the 2008 Thomas Cup finals in Indonesia, which it's a whole experience in itself, being in Indonesia, where you can barely even hear yourself hit the shuttle. The crowd is so loud. So out of your whole career, what would you say would be maybe your most memorable moment or most notable or proudest achievement out of everything?
I would probably say it was that Thomas Cup. I mean, is that saying that I started at the top and it all went downhill? But no, it was definitely playing in Indonesia. I think any badminton player who's played professionally, if they had the chance to play there, that's the place you want to play. It's just, they are absolutely mental over there. And my debut was against a former All England champion, so I couldn't have asked for more. And actually, he was one of the guys that I watched. I had a tape of him winning the All England. And I watched it over and over again. So that was a bit of an experience. But on the court next to me was the Indonesian Uber Cup team. So the crowd were, I managed to experience the full force of that crowd. It was great. That whole trip was amazing. We spent a week in Malaysia training with the national team, and then the Thomas Cup there. Even though I was a nobody really in badminton, there were people in the crowd treating you like you're a celebrity. It was the wildest week ever, and that probably is my most memorable moment out of my whole career, if I'm honest. I've had a few other obviously good memories, but really that one it was really hard. That would have been really hard to top unless I got to play there again. But the 2008 Thomas Cup was my most memorable. I'm kind of lost for words when I think of that tournament because it really was amazing. If anyone ever were listening, if they ever get a chance to go and watch at the Istora Stadium for the Indonesian Open, then I would definitely recommend to go do it because it's an experience like no other, really.
I was there just recently for the Indonesian Masters, just coaching, not actually playing. And I never actually got to play there, which is disappointing, but I can it's crazy. It's a different world. The actual stands themselves are really close to the courts. So the fans are actually really, really close. So it's very tight knit and it's very, very loud in there. So if anyone can get there because it's a different world.
It's a bit different now, but like there was a players area, but the people, the general public were just crowding that area as well. They didn't care for the rules. They were just, if there was a spare seat or a spare space to stand, they were going to get in there. Because I went down and watched Indonesia play the semi-final against Korea, and it was, I think there was probably at least 1.5 times the amount of people for the amount of seats in there. They just let anyone in because it was, that tournament is a memory that I will never forget. It's amazing.
Now, for your debut, when you said you played an ex-All England champion, who was that?
It was Hafiz Hashim from Malaysia.
Oh, yeah, Malaysia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, after that All England, he kind of slipped to what he kind of, after that All England, he was still successsul, but not as much as people thought he could be. But he was still obviously a very good player when I played him.
Absolutely.
But it was just, I had the tape of him winning that All England, and I used to watch that over and over. So my debut to be in Indonesia against him was amazing.
So I guess everyone's wondering, how did you go against him, Ben?
I actually did all right. I do have it on tape. I think the scores were 14 and 15. So it was actually pretty reasonable. I'm watching it back. I think I did quite well considering. So I lost 14 and 15. I don't think it was ever going to be a win for me, but I was just glad that I didn't get beaten too badly.
Yeah, still very respectable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not one of those videos where you're going to do your own reaction of watching it again. I think I saw one recently.
That one I didn't do so well.
Chen Long, was it?
Yeah, it was against Chen Long.
Yeah.
And that was a drumming. That was I got beaten very badly, 5-5, just to clarify that before anyone else says it. But I would say obviously Chen Long was better than Hafiz, and I'm not going to try and justify it. I got beaten very badly. But as far as doing a reaction video to that Thomas Cup, the first one, that I might do. I mean, I could react a lot on what the commentator was saying because he he was a Malaysian guy speaking English, and it's quite funny. If you've ever watched videos from one of the Olympics where the Americans were commentating, have you seen?
Oh yes, I've seen them before.
It's quite entertaining just to hear them.
Try to explain the sport.
Try to, and it's not going very well. It's a little bit like that. Maybe I'll do that one day. I'll speak to Jonathan about that.
Yeah, or you could just put it up as raw footage.
Yeah, I mean it's not actually on YouTube, so maybe I could. Who knows? We'll see. I do better in that one, so I've got more kind of motivation to do that.
To put it up,
yeah.
So Ben, you said earlier in the podcast that you said, look, you peaked early and you started young, but you finished up quite young and you moved into coaching. What was that like, and what was the main reason why you decided to go into the coaching space?
Well, obviously, to do coaching within England, you have to have a level 2 coaching qualification, and you have to be 18. Well, you did at the time. So badminton, there's not much money in it. I think we can agree on that. I had a little bit of funding to go to tournaments, but to obviously go to the amount of tournaments I had to find a job. And the only thing, what made sense for me was to coach. So actually, while I played from the age of 18 all the way until I stopped, I actually was doing quite a fair bit of coaching to earn some money. When I stopped, coaching was something I could just continue to do. I quite enjoyed it actually when I played. I started off coaching a lot of the juniors that were beneath me, and helping them try to kind of become the next players within England. But actually, when I stopped, I actually looked at doing other things other than badminton coaching. But in the end, ultimately, it became that coaching was quite an easy way for me to earn some money, but also that I really enjoyed it. And it's always great when you help someone either learn a new shot, or you've coached a junior that when you began, they couldn't even get into a squad for a county, but then a few years later, they're playing for England at the World Juniors. Yeah, in the end, I didn't want to give up on the badminton, and coaching was just a natural progression for me. Like I said, I did it when I played. So when I stopped, I just carried on with it, really.
Yeah, nice. And for the players at home, firstly, if you could only choose one exercise or drill for a player seeking help, what do you think is the most important drill or exercise that a badminton player can do for training?
I mean, that's a difficult question.
Yeah.
If you have to choose one.
I have to choose one. But I mean, it's difficult because badminton is obviously such a multi-layered sport. There's so many aspects to it. So I'm going to answer this by saying what helped me the most. And that was actually doing shadow sessions and footwork drills. Obviously, you couldn't just do that only. You have to hit shuttles to be good at badminton. But if I had to pick one drill that I thought was most beneficial for myself and what I think can help a lot of players, is actually doing footwork. So shadow drills, not just the usual do it for 20 seconds as hard as you can and go all over the place, but actually combining that with specific patterns so that when you're on the court, everything is just moving very naturally and fluidly. I felt when I did that as a player that my level always went up a lot. So if I had to pick one, I would probably pick shadow badminton. I think it's a great thing to do for your badminton.
That's quite funny because the most recent post that I posted today on our Instagram was just the 4 of us, me, Jeff, and 2 other friends just shadowing on a court.
Oh,
and
cool, yeah.
And that's like I completely agree with that. And Henry knows I'm a footwork Nazi. I always give him crap about his footwork. But yeah, footwork or shadowing.
We discussed this at another podcast.
Shadowing is just huge. Absolutely huge. Can't even explain how big it is. And then I think I spoke on the other podcast about did you ever do it with a weights vest or similar? Because I felt that was really, really helpful to have a weights vest on.
Yeah, the weights vest always came out. That was quite a staple of training. I did it with bungee cords attached, moving to the front of the court when you've got someone on like a bungee cord. Anything you could think of. Ankle weights as well was sometimes put on. Anything to kind of keep the variety in there. A lot of the shadow sessions were gut busting, you'd be on the floor dead at the end. But the ones I did additionally were all about specific kind of movement patterns. So you're not absolutely dead at the end, but you're just drilling in, a bit similar to doing like shot practice. You do your open drills and all that kind of stuff, but then you obviously spend some time playing your net shots or just practicing drops or your slices. I treated shadow exactly the same. So I had the hard sessions, but then I would have at least 1 or 2 where I would do just some specific movements just for my game and my style. And that helped massively for me.
Yeah, I think that's really important because when you do get really natural at those movements, especially those ones you're talking about, Ben, and for the people who are listening who are not really sure about which kind of sequences, for me, this is more kind of the cross moving quickly. So you've played a net and then you played a net shot and they've gone fast cross over you and you're turning quickly, attacking down from either side. So sequences like that where you're looking for certain shots for the opponents to play, drilling them into your footwork so you can move really quickly there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I also did a lot of where I kind of replicate a situation where I'm looking for a certain corner, but they play to a different one. But I have to still attack that shot. So that I knew that in a game that even if my opponent think they haven't played to what I'm looking for, I can still get to the shuttle very quickly.
Absolutely.
And that was it. I mean, the variety, like badminton's great. There's variety is endless of what you can do. But I think a lot of people just think of shadow as just kill yourself.
Exactly. And I think people think shadow and footwork is just the same repetition, no braining, kind of just moving around the court, but it's completely opposite. You can make it as specific as you want. I actually sometimes get players to, when they're actually doing shadow, to actually think it's an actual point. So play a certain shot and expect something and move to it. And like you said, Ben, you might play a certain shot, expect it, and then go somewhere else because you have to be able to move even if you're not expecting it. So I think footwork
that's a really important point about when you're doing your shadow where you're moving anywhere you like, is to picture a rally.
Exactly.
It helps with your timing. It helps with everything. So there's obviously a time and place for just going like a crazy person, but I think that should be limited. I think always you've got to have a rally in mind. I think that's going to elevate your shadow training if you are looking to do it. So
yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I see people doing footwork and they're playing, say, a net shot at the net, a tight net shot, and then the next point they go to is like defending a smash. And I'm thinking, that's probably not that likely. You're going to need to move to that spot at that particular time. But I understand that they're just doing the footwork because they need to. So Ben, we talk about the different training styles and having, like, I know that you said the shadow and footwork is something that you found is really important. When you were actually training itself, did you have a certain type of training session that you enjoyed or found most beneficial? So for me personally, when I used to go into training, I used to love the physical parts. I'm one of the strange ones where I walk into the hall and think, I cannot wait to walk out of here and be completely wrecked because I know I've worked really, really hard. What were your favorite? Was it more match play, drills, technique, physical?
I was also one of those guys. I was known within our training group as being a bit of a sadist in that respect. I was pretty mad on the physicals, and our coach, he did a lot of them. When I first started training, like full time, I think the movie 300 had just come out. If you think of that film, everyone, the guy that trained those people, the actors, to get in shape, did all these kind of like what you'd call almost CrossFit now. It's like these circuit training and stuff. So we ended up doing a lot of that kind of stuff. A lot of running, sprints, rowing. I mean, we did a lot of rowing as well for some reason, but for me, rowing was great. I hated it, but loved it at the same time.
Rowing's a killer. Rowing is so hard.
Yeah.
Intervals,
Rowing was one of those ones for me where I didn't really see it have too much trade-off to your badminton in terms of, obviously you get fitter, but what it really helped was your mental, the mental side, to be able to kind of dig deep, because rowing, when you die, you just want to just get off that thing. But
so bad. And your butt hurts. Everything hurts.
Everything hurts. But so for me, I love the physical side. I was quite good at it as well. And I loved absolutely killing myself. So if I said what did I enjoy the most, I think everyone loves playing matches, but really, if I look back, I really enjoyed the physical side, and I still train physically quite hard now, even though it's not so much with badminton, for my own fitness, because I do generally really enjoy pushing myself in that respect, whether it's weights or circuit training or setting myself some sort of ridiculous challenge to try and do. So I think I'm like you, the physical side, the physical sessions were the ones that I loved. Because the last thing I say is, at Milton Keynes, at the National Centre, they have this big kind of sign on the wall. You know, these kind of motivational quotes.
Yeah.
And one is, they have it on the big wall. They got all the kind of players that have done well, won Olympic medals, that kind of stuff. Underneath it, they have, I don't train because I like it. I train because I like winning. And I always disagreed with that. I always hated that phrase. It always used to annoy me, because it's like, I actually do like the training. That side for me, and working really hard and dying was great fun. So I never really agreed with that phrase, but I guess a lot of people do agree with that, but I'm not one of them.
I'm actually one that agrees with you, Ben. I actually enjoyed training probably sometimes even more than playing the tournaments and competitions.
Yeah.
That was just me personally, but yeah.
I can relate to that massively. Obviously, we all like playing the competitions and wanting to do well, but I don't know. The physical side, I always liked coming back to training and seeing what's the next most ridiculous training session I can get through. I don't know why. I told you, a bit of a sadist in that respect.
You two are like peas in a pod. What quote would you put in there, the both of you, instead of the quote that you just mentioned?
Oh,
Pleasure is pain. Pain is pleasure. Or?
I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I have seen a few online that are quite good. People that are into, people that do CrossFit or bodybuilding or any sort of like training that's really, really hard, but they really enjoy that kind of that pain they get from it. There's a few good ones on there, but I can't think of any right now. My mind's drawn a blank.
How about yourself, Jeff?
No, I don't have any, but I think for me, it would relate to process. So relate to focusing on the process and focusing on the journey, I guess, because I guess at the end of the day, like the results, the gold medal that's hanging around the neck, that's kind of the destination, or that could be one of the destinations. But I think for me, the training, why I really enjoyed it was it's just that continual improvement in yourself, testing yourself, pushing yourself. And it's more the journey that's going to get you to where you want to be. And I just really enjoyed that part of it. So I don't know how that goes into a quote.
Maybe like, what do you call it? Find pleasure in the process or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
But there's got to be something about the pain, because I did quite like that. That's got to be in there somewhere.
Oh, we all know that now. So Ben, having contributed to the development of many badminton players in England of all levels, what do you think of the current state of badminton in England compared to when you were involved as a player?
I think, England in general, the level, we were one of the best nations where my mum played, and then it's gradually gone downhill. We've obviously had some very good players and pairs. We've won, we had Simon Archer and Joe Good. They got a bronze in Sydney, I believe. And then Nathan Gale got the silver in Athens. And I don't think we've won a medal since then. We've had some good pairs. Obviously, got the Adcocks. We've got Marcus and Lauren doing quite well. So I think doubles, we seem to be okay. Mixed, we're quite good at creating mixed pairs. But in general, the level is just the depth. And for me, I think where England's really struggling is we don't have a really good club system, as in a competitive club system, compared to a lot of the other. I'm not sure what it's like in Australia, but
it's definitely worse than England, but it's probably not as good. But it sounds like it's not as good as, say, the Danish league or the...
No, almost every nation in Europe has some sort of league. Even Tenerife, which is a holiday destination, has a league, like a club league that international players will go and play.
I did not know that, but yeah.
No, they do. But England, our club system is generally it's more casual. You get more older club players just playing doubles. Obviously, we have a county system, like county, where you play for your region. They have singles, doubles, and that kind of stuff. But it's not the same. I think England really needs to get a really good club system like Denmark or France or Germany, because the club system does really well is it keeps former players like myself playing. It gives opportunities for younger players to witness good badminton and to get an opportunity to play in it. And obviously it gives a breeding ground. If you can get internationals in for the current players playing for England to play consistently against them in your own country, for your own place. Whereas every England player that wants that has to go abroad. And England really needs to kind of get on that. I don't know why they haven't tried to do. They tried to do it with the NBL. Did you ever hear of?
No, I didn't.
No, what's that stand for?
No, it was it ran for about 3 years. I played in the first year of it. It was kind of like that. They had some international players playing, but it was more. They got it on TV, but it was more of a gimmick. And you had like best of 5 to 7. You had a power play where you picked up a pink shuttle and it gave you 2 points if you won. All this kind of stuff. And
well, that's odd.
Yeah, and there was a bit of money in it, but it just didn't really go anywhere. And it's now a thing of the past. What I think England needs to do really is to get a solid club system in that's competitive, just like the other European nations are doing. And it's, as a result, you can see it. A lot of the other, Denmark doing really well. They always have. But the other nations are doing really well. And England we're still up there, but I think we're holding on by the skin of our teeth, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's really odd how I would have thought. I just learned something new. I didn't know that you guys didn't really have much of a club infrastructure over there.
No, there is one, but it's not for top level. The top divisions in Surrey, which are a strong county where I live, yeah, they wouldn't get in. They would be the third team for the county, so they're not like the top. We're not looking at international players playing in them. So, there's a quite a big tournament scene, but again, that's slipping as well. Everything is kind of, I think, slowly going down. And we still got some good players, like I've already said, and there's always talent. We always do quite well with junior tournaments within England, but it's transitioning to the seniors. There's something missing, and I genuinely believe it's the club system that needs to improve to help with that. Most definitely, I can't see anything else really.
Yeah. How do you see the development of the singles players? Because like you said, we've got some really strong mixed pairs. Now, I do agree. I think mixed is definitely England's strongest event, but we've definitely had some really strong men's doubles pairs as well. Definitely.
Yeah.
And the last ladies doubles pair that, in my opinion, went really well was Gail and
Donna Kellogg.
Yeah, Donna Kellogg.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm not sure if ladies doubles probably isn't my strongest suit, but where do you think, say, in men's singles, so Rajiv Usuf has retired now, and he was kind of in that top position for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're missing the key in terms of developing these men's singles, ladies singles players? Why mixed doubles? Do we just have better coaches for it, or?
Interesting question. I think because there's been players that have done it, there's that belief within mixed still within England that you can do it. So when you're a junior, I think a lot of the players who are singles players will become doubles and mixed players because they see that there's more of a success potentially within that. Also, a lot of these players that are coming up, they play in the European circuit, and the European circuit is really strong, but men's singles and women's singles,
so hard,
especially men's, it's the hardest one. It's ridiculous. I think once Chris Langridge, I was talking to him, and the same points that he's got for this was a while back, but for his men's doubles, which got him to 30, something like 30, between 30 and 40 in the world at the time, would be the equivalent of just outside the top 100 in men's singles. It was just the competition is insane. So I think a lot of our talented players move towards the doubles events. And I think you get the same in the ladies singles, because ladies singles at the top levels.
Absolutely.
That's a hard thing to get into as well. So I think a lot of them get put off because we haven't. I mean, Raj did really well.
Sparks belief or something.
Maybe he might be that person will inspire a few. Spark a bit of belief that actually an Englishman can do well again. Obviously, we've got Toby Penty. He's doing pretty well. He's our number one guy now. Not obviously at the same level as Raj was yet, but he might be that one guy that was inspired by Raj, and he might help the next lot. But I think that's really it. Is singles is generally harder to get to the top. So, and I think because England has got more success in the past with doubles events and mixed, especially, that the juniors kind of, once they get out of juniors and they lose in qualifying for a year, they're but they get to the semi of a doubles tournament, and I'm going to be a doubles player. So they kind of go down that avenue. How you tackle that was your question. Whew, that's a tricky one. I think we're going to have to, I know I'm not sure if this is an answer.
We'll spend another podcast on this one, hey?
I'm not sure if this is an answer, but we might just have to get a little bit of luck to get one or two really good talented players that really want to do it, that truly want to be good singles players. Raj is now coaching at Milton Keynes, so he's going to be able to help them massively. And it just builds up that kind of a solid base at the centre, the national centre, that then gives belief to the next lot.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to be a bit lucky in that respect.
I agree with that, Ben. I think, getting the right amount of talent in and the drive to actually be successful, as well as having someone like Raj to provide that mentorship and just go along with that journey with them and give them that confidence.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to go back even further, we all probably can agree that grassroots, so when they're starting as juniors, getting in the right coaching from a young age. England at the moment, I see a lot of the top players, again, this might hark back to the club system. It keeps the top player, like I said, former players playing. That also might keep former players in offering advice and actually coaching. Because I know a lot of people that played when I played, that were my age, that don't have anything to do with badminton, and they were all really good players. So they're not offering their kind of coaching and advice to any of the juniors, the next ones. So I think we kind of, when a player such as myself or someone else might stop, not many of them then stay within badminton. So we're not really you need those guys to stay, whether actively playing on the circuit or coaching, to help. So we need, not saying we need better coaches, because there are some good ones in the country, but we need even more, especially if we want to produce some good singles players. I think we're kind of relying on a bit of luck coming our way, and that's not the way you should do it, but that's currently what it is.
Yeah, completely. I actually spoke to Brice Lebedes about this, And because he's had some really breakthrough wins as well against Chong Wei, Chen Long, Kenichi Tago, all those top players. Yeah. And he was talking about the same thing. We just need someone to break through, create that little bit of belief that the juniors can see and aspire to. And of course, people are going to be drawn to the things that they believe they can do. So the mixed doubles and the men's doubles or ladies doubles does sound a lot more appealing than the men's singles. And Ben, just another quick comment about what you just said about players sticking around in coaching. This might sound, I'm not sure how this will actually sound, but I'm just going to say it anyway because that's what the podcast is about. Do you know how we talked about at the start? We said, look, your parents wanted you to go to university because they want you to have a career after badminton because badminton only takes you so far, etc. And then I think that in the Western world, we're really lucky in that we do have this access to education quite readily. We're very privileged in that way so that when we do finish our sport, we do have an option to go study or study while we're doing our sport. And that's potentially how we can lose these players from staying in the system and coaching. Take it over to Asia. Now, like I said, this could be controversial, but in Asia, a lot of the time they devote their time to badminton and they don't think about the other things. And I think that results in the main pathway, maybe not the only pathway, but the very well-ridden pathway that after they finish their career, they do go into coaching because they may not have the same opportunities as we do to find a job education. And that keeps the knowledge, keeps the experience and the players in the system that potentially develops them. Yeah, at grassroots levels, you've got ex-national players at grassroots levels. And in the Western countries, we're probably not seeing that as much. What do you think about that?
I think I think you're right. Obviously, in Asia, badminton is bigger. Mm-hmm. There's more potential to make a living. I know for a fact I don't think, unless it's apart from certain academies, the coaching doesn't pay particularly brilliantly. But I think they love the sport so much. Like you say, when they finish, a lot of them become coaches, whether it's national coaches or helping at some of the big clubs. Yeah, badminton is just more like a way of life, especially in a few of the Asian countries like Indonesia. It's a national sport. So I think if you can say it's like an honor to obviously play even at one of the best clubs, let alone for your country, and then obviously they're naturally going to want to then be coaches and be part of that and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just a much larger thing over there. It's different, like you say, it's different over in the Western world. But I think some countries in the Western world have got it right. I think Denmark, for such a small nation, I think they've got it down to a T. I don't know exactly the ins and outs of how their system works, but they have a very strong club system. A lot of their players do education at the same time. They have their schools that allow them to kind of do it over longer periods of time so they can train at the same time as study. So yeah, no, it is completely different between Asia, the Eastern world, Asia and over in Europe. But I don't think we should try and copy that. I don't think it would work. But countries like Denmark and I think Germany as well and a few others are on the model that the European nations can definitely look towards.
Yeah, completely agree. And I guess taking a step back now, we've sort of touched on it a bit, talking about how England and other countries that are less dominant can compete against or get to the level as other more dominant countries. But the question I want to ask now is, if we take a step back and just talk about badminton in general, and I know maybe this is going to come back to sort of developing the sport at grassroots levels and having that sort of supply of good coaches and good infrastructure. But what do you think badminton players and enthusiasts like us can do to grow the sport?
Well, I think something like what you're doing with this podcast is great. I've seen recently that Bittinghouse has now started his own one.
Yeah, we spoke about it on our
maybe after being on your show, it gave him the idea.
He was thinking about doing it, and then he did. So good on him. Awesome.
Yeah, so I think things like the podcast, especially your idea that you're not just getting badminton players, but other people that just have an interest in badminton, but from other walks of life. So there's more people that are going to listen to this podcast than just people that like badminton. It's going to be everyone can get something from it. Top players being more active. I mean, a lot of them are quite active on social media, but that obviously needs to grow. I see that quite a few players now are kind of creating YouTube channels where you get a little bit more behind the scenes on what their training's like, what they're like at tournaments. I know that Vic Traxton and Anders Hansen have done that. I'm not sure if there's any other players that do it, but that's really good. That's going to get people just kind of getting to know these players a little bit more. Enthusiasts, I mean, since I've joined Swift, we get emails all the time from people from all kind of standards and abilities of badminton and all from all walks of life. And so many of them are like, can you give me a contact detail of someone so I can set some sort of badminton event up in my area? I'm trying to get badminton really big in my village. That's my goal. Or in my area, badminton isn't very well known, or it's got this bad perception. So I'm trying to change that. So we just need more people like that working really hard to kind of get badminton more in the kind of the mainstream and kind of change perceptions. So yeah, I'd say stuff like this, the podcasts, social media, YouTube, players really going out there to kind of get themselves outside of the badminton circles as well, not just kind of trying to appeal to badminton enthusiasts. Obviously that's what they're going to attract most of the time, but try to go outside that and see if you can appeal to a wider audience, so someone that might not even really have known about badminton suddenly goes, well, I like him and he's a badminton player, or I like her, she's a badminton player. I might go watch them play, and then they suddenly like it, and it kind of will grow from there. It's kind of like what we are trying to do a little bit with Swift, is to kind of try and attract people that maybe didn't know much about badminton or didn't give it much of a second thought through our YouTube channel and that kind of stuff. So I'd like to see some of the top players maybe try and branch outside of what the badminton circle, maybe trying to appeal to a slightly wider audience. Yeah, so I don't have any great, big, wonderful idea, but just more of the same. I think I'm starting to see little things. I think if more people did it and it grew more, then that would definitely help badminton's popularity, especially outside of where it already is really popular.
Yeah, we've just got to keep building those, like a brick at a time, isn't it? It's just one little thing at a time that's going to build the wall or the big thing that we want to build. And it's not going to be a one-step system where it's just going to make it a big sport. So no. I think, that's the whole reason why we're doing the podcast as well. And it's kind of have those building blocks in place. And also for those people who aren't involved in badminton to kind of look in and think, whoa, that's got a big following. That seems like a good interest to have, or a good community to be a part of. Because when you look at, say, other sports, let's just take American football, for example. I don't follow that whatsoever, but you can see how much hype and how much people love it and the community involved. Yeah. And you think, I think that's a cool sport. I think it's a sport that, maybe I'll get into it at some stage because it seems really cool. But badminton, I think we're just starting to build that now, and we're a bit late to the scene. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't follow any American sports really, but I kind of, obviously it's starting to get quite big in the UK, UFC, all that kind of stuff. That's global. But
yeah, absolutely.
American football, they sometimes come over to England for the odd match at Wembley, and everyone goes absolutely nuts for it. I mean, I had friends at school that loved American football, but for me, I don't really enjoy those sports. I understand what you're saying is the hype. Sometimes you get it. I sometimes feel that I want to watch it.
Yeah, I want to like this sport. Yeah.
I haven't got around to it. I want to because it looks really cool. The production on it's really, really exciting. There's some characters in there, and I might watch more of a highlight reel or kind of a trailer for something, but I'm not sure I'd watch an actual whole match. But I get what you're saying is if we could do the same for badminton, it was a bit more exciting. It really gets you kind of like, even if you don't know it, you're like, oh, I'm interested. That I might give that a watch, or
just a game or a go, or
yeah, exactly. Because I think a lot of it is generally quite boring and dull. If you don't like badminton, you're probably not going to want to watch it.
Yeah,
it's a shame because it's, as we all agree, it's a great sport. There's so many layers to it. It's exciting, fast paced. The matches don't go on for hours, which a lot of sports do. There's always an end result. I mean, what isn't there to like?
Yeah, not like the cricket. Not bagging out the cricket fans there, but sometimes it's just a draw.
Yeah, and you wait 5 days for that.
So we know that you're heavily involved with Jonathan in Swift Badminton, and we've had a conversation with him on a different episode of the podcast. But from your perspective, we'd love to hear what's in store from your point of view in Swift Badminton. Basically, how did you get involved with Jonathan? We know that you met him Wimbledon at the centre there. And yeah, what's your involvement there? How do you see it going? And what do you love about being a part of Swift Badminton?
So how I became a part of Swift, obviously I've known Jonathan a while back. I actually coached him. He actually said that I gave him a couple of private lessons a while back, but I couldn't remember it. I do apologise. But he was this, I remember this, he was young but hardworking kid that absolutely loved the sport. And eventually through sheer determination, he'd got good enough where I felt, because I was the head of the performance centre, I felt I could invite him to one of my sessions. He was a few years older than everyone else, but we'd had players like that before. And I felt that he'd be a great part to the session because he'd be a good sparring player for some of the really good younger players. He works really hard to be a good role model. And I just felt that players like that work so hard, you need to give them their due, and he deserved to be there. So he was within those sessions for a year or two, but then he went to university. And then just randomly, I remember just sitting with my friend watching some badminton YouTube stuff for some reason, and his one came up on Swift. I think it might have been the stereotype video or one of those ones. And I actually found it entertaining. And usually badminton stuff that's not like highlight reels and stuff is a bit dull. I don't really watch the tutorials or anything. But this one, actually, I watched it right to the end and I thought, you know what, that's really good. And I actually, at the time, didn't recognize it as him because obviously he'd grown quite a bit older in the time and changed a bit. But he looked familiar. But I just remember thinking, wow, that's really good. Someone's actually trying to do something a bit different and make badminton fun and entertaining. But anyway, he contacted me not long after, actually, funnily enough, asking me for some private lessons to do some shots and some drills. And during those sessions, he started talking about what he was doing with, I asked him about Swift and what he was doing. And he was at the time working on his first online course, the Footwork Fast Lane. Mm-hmm. He showed me everything that he'd done for it. And it was mind blowing. The amount of work that he put in, it was, I'd say close to 100,000 words he'd written and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, wow, that's really good. I don't think anyone had attempted something like that before. But after a few sessions, he asked me if I would want to help him with one lesson on it, a kind of a bonus lesson on the dive. And I was like, yeah, I never really dived very well as a player myself, but I'll give it a go. I'm happy to help. So I did it. It went really well. It ended up being our most popular course by far. And then not long after that, he wanted to do another one. And so he asked me if I would actually work with him on all of it. It went really well. And then it was at that time that I was actually looking to move away from Wimbledon in my job, my role there. And he said, do you want to come on board with Swift? And I said, yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of got involved with Swift. As far as what we want to do or what I want to do is, I think we're quite close in the way that we think about our goals for it. And that is that obviously this year is going to be focusing on our YouTube channel, trying to get more of a presence there and kind of make videos that aren't just tutorials, but a bit more entertaining, a bit more fun, get more people interested in badminton that maybe weren't before. And as well as that, grow the sport of badminton as much as we can via whatever means possible, really. The people that subscribe to our email list, we get emails all the time. And so we're trying to help those guys. And yeah, it's just, we're basically trying to grow the sport of badminton, but also grow it outside of the kind of general way badminton is, which is a lot of tutorials and kind of stuff like that. So
yeah, you're both very aligned.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I got involved in what I'd like Swift to do for this year. And I think it's very close. I listened to Jonathan's podcast and he was pretty much saying the same things, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shows the team's aligned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we're on the same path. And he is the boss, I would say that. So he does make decisions, but I wholeheartedly am behind what he wants, what his vision is, and it's exactly how, if it was mine, I would do exactly the same. So yeah, we're definitely aligned on our thought process for moving forward with Swift.
That's awesome. And it's really great to see that as well, that your content is actually, just really entertaining when it comes to badminton content. I've spent my fair share of time on YouTube looking at badminton videos and just like you, looking at tutorials and just not being able to get through them. But when I first saw Jonathan's videos, one of his earlier videos, like how to hit a backhand like Taufik Hidayat, I watched it from start to finish because I just found it really entertaining. just provided a lot of value to me as a badminton player, but I'm sure it would have provided a lot of value for people who aren't badminton players as well, which is what's fantastic about what you guys are doing.
And that's what I really liked about his, because he did that video before I was on board, and I also watched it start to finish. And what I really liked about it was informative, but also entertaining, and that's what really lacked. And if there's one thing that me and Jonathan, it's not that we disagree, but it's something that I'd like to do, maybe because I didn't get the chance to do it with him, is actually still do some tutorials, but make them more entertaining rather than this is a serve, this is how you do a serve, do a serve. It's a little bit like that. I want to throw in some jokes, throw in some funny clips. There's one that he hates me mentioning, but have you seen the one where he teaches you how to pick a shuttle off the floor?
No, I haven't.
No, I don't think so.
You should watch it, because there's one where it's a scene where he's basically lying in his bathrobe seductively with a tube of shuttles, and it's quite funny. I can't really do it justice, but you have to watch it. But I think even the thumbnail was him in his bathrobe holding a shuttle.
Wow.
He hates me mentioning that one, but I thought.
But that's what you want for badminton, right?
Yeah, but actually, the actual video itself, the tips he gives on how to do it is actually really good. But he's thrown in a few things that just make it that little bit funnier. So I'd still like to do some of that this year, but whether that's part of the plan, I'm not sure. I think it's just because I never got the chance to do some with him that I kind of want to be involved with that, because we've got to keep it fun. And
well, maybe if he listens to the podcast, he might reconsider.
Maybe.
You hear that, Jonathan?
I want to do some funny tutorials. That's what I want to do as well. But yeah,
I think that'd be really cool. So Ben, we've come to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I know it was a bit longer than we had anticipated, and we could probably continue talking for another hour, but I know that you've got probably a busy day ahead of you.
Yeah, I've got some coaching to get to.
Oh, do you? Okay, well.
Yeah. But no, I could happily talk for hours about badminton. So it's been great to be on the show, and thank you ever so much for inviting me on here.
No worries. Thanks
for being on. Thank you, everyone who's listening to the Badminton Podcast. We will continue to bring on guests like Ben, who will provide so much value. I can't even go through all the things that we talked about today, but there's just so much information there. A bit like Swift Badminton's videos, just a lot of information, very informative, also entertaining at the same time. So really enjoyed having Ben on as a podcast guest. So hoping to continue providing value to everybody listening and to help you push as a player and a person. Make sure that you keep sharing your love of the sport with everyone so we can show the world how incredible badminton is.
And if you want to get in contact with us, so Henry and I at Volant, we're all the Badminton podcasts. You can follow us on our social media handle on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and also TikTok. Our handle is Volantwear, VOLANTWEAR. You can also connect with us on our website, www.volantwear.com. We also have an Instagram handle for our podcast itself, and that's just the Badminton Podcast, no spaces. Now, Ben, if someone wants to get in contact with you or follow Swift's work and what you're doing, is there a way that they could potentially follow to see how you're going?
I am on Instagram, but I don't really post. I'm more there to view. Swift Badminton have an Instagram. It's just Swift Badminton. I believe Jonathan's trying to upload more to it, but the main one is the YouTube channel. So it's just Swift Badminton. Just search that and you'll find us. And then from there, you can go in through a variety of things to kind of, if you wish, you can subscribe to our channel and then also subscribe to our email list where you'll get even more information. You can actually, that's where you'll get to our own personal emails to be able to contact us and ask us any questions you want about badminton or life in general, really.
Absolutely. Make sure everyone gets in contact. So, Badminton community, thanks so much again for tuning in to this episode of the Badminton Podcast, and we'll speak to you again soon. Cheers.
Bye.
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 This podcast was brought to you by Volantwear, the most versatile badminton apparel you'll ever own.